welcome to another developer interview here on Game Wisdom for our Perceptive podcast series. For tonight's topic, we're going to be talking adventure design as well as creating a game on a limited budget and resources. My guest is working on the game Hope, a Sky Full of Ghosts, and they are part of a two-person team developing it. So please welcome to the chat, Azrael. How are you doing?
Hi, Josh. I'm doing great. Thank you for having us here. It's truly an honor because I mentioned it before, but I've been following you for a bit, and it's really interesting to be on this side of the screen, I guess.
hmm Yeah, I've gotten a few like people interviewing me. It's always like weird when I'm the one who's not the host, so it's always fun when things switch like that. But
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for reaching out. And as I always tell developers, and for you listening, if you know someone or if you are working on game dev or a project and like to go and chat about it, please mention my name. I'm always looking for guests. So it is great to have you on. I think we checked out Hope a few times in the
Yes.
past. I think during one of the Adventure Fest that happened last year. I think it was the first time
Last year,
I
yeah, yeah.
looked at it. So, since this is your first time on the cast, to begin with, can you talk a little bit about your background and give everyone kind of like the elevator pitch for Hope?
Absolutely. It's hard to be on this side for someone that is not used to it. But I'm Azrael. I'm a narrative designer, uh, game designer and puzzle designer because we're like you said, we're a team of two. We're from South America. We're from Venezuela. Both of us. We had to migrate. I'm in Canada. My partner Will is in the US. He sends his regrets. He wanted to be here, but he couldn't due to some personal issues. But we've been working on Hope Skyfall of Ghosts for quite a bit now, and it's a narrative adventure game where the main focus is you as a captain. You're Agatha Hope, title name, of course, and you're trying to navigate a disjointed crew that is making sure that you fulfill your mission, which is escaping the corporate tyranny that is on Earth. Not related to our current corporate tyranny on Earth, just something that happens to be on our minds. Um, but you're gonna see puzzles, you're gonna see mini games, but most of all, you're gonna have to make decisions on pretty much every dialogue that you have with your crew. So it's really interesting for us, and we really look forward to having see you decide how your Agatha is, because you're not being a blank slate. She has her personality, she has her goals, and she has her way of seeing the world, and her relationship with the crew. That it's except for one, everybody else is new to you. So you're going to be meeting them as well as she's meeting them.
Hmm. And where did the concept for Hope come from?
This is actually quite interesting because I came to this version of the game, but let's call it late, because this was actually a jam game for this game jam that is you have to make a game within 13 kilobytes, which is insane in my mind. So my partner Will and a friend of his Juan from Chile, they developed this tiny story. You had this little ship and you had to make sure to that has crashed. Something was wrong with it, and you had to decide how to fix it, right? And the way that you fixed it was the game, right? It would have different endings depending on what you decide to fix and what you decide to sacrifice. Um, but when they came to it, they really liked the setting. They really liked the vision of it, and they found like there was depth into this Agatha character and what would happen if she had friends and crew and other people that she had to navigate this with. So they started to develop this portion of this bigger adventure. And that's when I came in because Will and I we've been friends for probably 15 years, 16 years now, which is odd to say. It's 2026. But but when we reconnected a few years back, he told me about the game. I said, "Well, this sounds amazing. Here, I've been working on Twine for a bit, so here's things that you can do to develop your dialogue and things like that." And he really liked it. Juan really liked it too. And they said, "Well, why don't you join us and let's make this happen." So that's when everything started to click because we started to do spreadsheets for stories, and we jumped to this tool called Yarn that you can. It's a plugin in Unity that you can actually use, uh, and everything started to come together. Now, the story that we, the three of us, put together, the main beats are there. The same spreadsheet that we use because of spreadsheets that we used to put this plot together has over 1,000 lines on it, and it's insane with how many columns we had. But other than the main plot, everything's different now, right? There's a few things here and there because as you build and as you write and as you develop the game, you realize to find different things, and that's something that we're going to talk about today, right? What are those limitations that you think? Because when you're talking about the story, you're saying, "Hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this." When it comes time to actually make those things happen, you have a bit of a stricter curve that you might want to do either in software, either in storytelling itself. Decisions that you made at the earliest first time of the story guide you through different stages, right? So it's really interesting to see the story itself develop itself and make sure that we tell that story, not the one that we came in with. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm. And how many kilobytes did you say the jam challenge was?
Oh, that was 13. That's insane. It's, I think it's called SK13 or something like that. I wasn't there for it, but I can't imagine Will
Oof.
and Juan working on that
Mm.
for, man, that is a huge, and they had sounds, they had graphics, and they had story. It was insane. I mean, we say that from 2026, but that's what they were doing back in the Mario days, right? They had like 40 kilobytes. The sprites were bigger that we see now than the actual full game back in the NES days, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Yeah, I think
there's a
that's
challenge
also like
there.
a really good point for our conversation here about doing a lot with very little. So, just for the
Yeah.
heck of it, I looked up on Steam what the original size was for XCOM, the original XCOM, and it
Okay.
says that was 16.53 megabytes to make the original XCOM back in the day.
Oh man. Yeah.
And again, like when it comes to any development, one of the best things has just been seeing how developers do a lot with either very little, with very specific knowledge bases, or using very unique engines. Um, like again, like for people who are longtime listeners, you know we've spoken a lot with other adventure game developers, Dave Gilbert, and so on, and making use of stuff like Adventure Game Studio, and just like the sheer amount that or sheer amount of creativity that goes into making a game. And it's always like the funny juxtapositions, and I think about like Call of Duty is like what, like 150 or 200 gigabytes now just
Something
to
like that. Yeah.
install the game. And I mean, I don't ever have enough space, well, so I have my hard
Yep.
drive
Yep.
to put one of those on. But again, it goes with like being able to create something and being able to do with as you know as few or as many resources that you have available.
Yeah. It's eye-opening when I heard that story because 13 kilobytes is I can't even write a page that is that small with the software that we have today, right? But it's really interesting to see how although the concept of those 13 kilobytes is there, we're aiming for the game not to be 1 gigabyte in memory storage. And that contrast comes from, well, I mean, they used I think it was Python for that jam. But now we're using Unity, which comes with its own baggage of tricks and its own bunch of utility tools that most of them we ignore because it's a 2D game and they have 3D on the back end too. So that's part of the optimization and making sure that it is that our focus is the story of the game. So everything is aimed to tell that story, and anything that it doesn't work with it and it's just a hassle to deal with, or well, not a hassle to deal with, but it's something that is not enriching that, we just chop it. We make sure that it's not there anymore. And that's what Will has been doing. He's a programmer, an artist. He is brilliant, and every time that that he codes something is the first time is lean, and the second time that you see the game run, it's even faster than before. So it's really it's a power. It's like, yeah.
And how long have the two of you been working on the game for?
I'm gonna say it's about 6 to 7 years at this time. Now, to be honest, we do have full-time jobs, right? So we only dedicate a couple hours a week
Mhm.
to this project. Will has dedicated much more from his point of view, but it's we do this on our spare time. We do have full times, we have full families, we have social lives that we try to keep up to date. But this leaves, although it's been 6 to 7 years, having counting time because we meet twice a week for
Mhm.
about an hour and a half, 90 minutes to 2 hours. So if you calculate that 52 times, it'll be probably a year's worth of full-time development or something like that. Um, but uh, but it's been a journey, and we're looking forward to finally seeing the end of it. Not because we don't like hope, but if you're a developer, you know that your game can be tiring sometimes after you've seen it so long for so many times and you've played it through it so many times. But we are. This is just news, I guess. It's a three-chapter story, and we're working on the third chapter at the moment with stories and things like that. We have to still build a few things in the middle, but the very first one is our demo. We're still tweaking things on it for the final release. The second is where we leave you from the demo, and then the third one is something that we're really looking forward to finalizing complete because we have endings already mapped out, we have stories mapped out, we have quests mapped out, which is oh, it's a joy to finally be on that step. Yeah.
And with kind of the development of Hope, like from the demo that I play or the several demos, I know you have a emphasis on like again like choosing different decisions or having different choices for how the story develops. Was that something that was kind of like thought of like during like the initial development, or did that come about as the two of you were designing the game?
No, that's been there since the beginning. We've always wanted to have, although we don't want you to be you, because Agatha is her own person. We want you to see what type of Agatha is she? Is she just a tough, kind of person that doesn't care about anybody else? Is she compassionate and just goes around just telling everybody that they're great, or just a smart person that thinks about the possibilities of everything and attaches her decisions around what is smart at the moment? Right? So we have those are the main three. Almost every decision will have one of those three triggers on it, right? You're going to see a little brain, you can select the brain, you're going to select the fist for tough, or you're going to select the heart for compassionate. And that's going to guide how people react to you and what kind of map goes around, right? What kind of map the story follows. Now, the bulk of the story, the plot of it is one of them. It's the same for everybody. I mean, at the very end, you're going to get to a point, and that point doesn't change much. What the characters do and the characters say, what your stand is at that point is what's going to change, when reframe that final action or the actions across the game. But that's something that we're really looking forward to because we have two types of decisions. We have these decisions that tell you who Agatha is, and we've got decisions that we call cascading decisions. Okay, that branch story in very particular ways. So those are fewer and far between because writing three different dialogue choices for everything is huge, but we can always bring it back to a center point. But when we tell you to you have a cascading decision, if you want to something that is on the deck that you can play now, if you want to help kill a switch or do you want to focus on the mission, that's a cascading decision that even the demo, if you play it through those paths, you'll see a difference on what's happening there. You're going to have a follow up after that question. You're going to have an obstacle in front of you, and the way that that's resolved will depend on if you focus on the mission or if you help kill switch. Um, and although on that same scene, your rocket still launches, right, and you steal the ship, the way that it happens is different, and that's what we're looking to get, right? So you're what type of leader are you in one scenario, and who are you when the push comes to shove, like they say, right? when you have two things to decide upon, two things that are equally important, which one do you take?
Yeah, and that's always like very interesting, like from like a storytelling perspective.
Yeah,
Because when I think about like choice, like back in like the early 2000s, it was very much like very like binary, good evil, white black. Are you
yeah,
always good or are you always evil, and that's about it. And then we saw like more nuance, especially in like the last like 10, 15 years, with having decisions where there really is no, good answer. Like
yeah,
something bad is going to happen. It just depends on, what bad thing do you favor least. And
yeah,
it's the very similar, like, same kind of decision making that I see in a lot of, like, the better, like, roguelikes or any kind of, like, replayable game where if the player always knows that, okay, if I just choose these choices down the line, there's all going to be the good ending. If I choose these
yeah.
choices, it's always the bad ending. Like, it kind of like I think loses that appeal. It loses like more interesting story decisions as well.
Yeah, it's something that you need to have. The story needs to be so good on one of those two paths by themselves that you're going to
Hmm.
say, you know what, this is the book I'm going to read, right? I want to read the book where the story that I'm on where I'm good, or the story that I'm on where I'm evil or whatever. And there's a good chunk of those stories. Infamous comes to mind for me.
Hmm.
Infamous and Infamous 2 and Infamous Second Son are that franchise. I love it. It's on PlayStation, and you should play it. Everybody should play it. But it is like that. You have a very clear good path and a very clear evil path, and the
Hmm.
way that those develop are are great. I play them both. Those are the only things that I've platinum in my catalog, I think. Um, but it's a really it really takes a lot of effort to be that narrow in a way. But it also, as developers, when we face that decision, we started thinking, well, we don't want it to be a right option all the time, right? And every
Hmm.
time that we're writing dialogues, so that although I'm quote unquote narrative designer, I guess, I'm writing and things like that, Will and I do everything together, right? So he focuses on a few things and I focus on a few others. But when the story comes in, that is a collaborative effort that we decide everything on. And if we have a question when we say help or focus, for instance, on kill switch, right?
Hmm.
Help kill switch, focus on the mission. We have to make sure that the player understands that those are two very important things, very different things, and they have different optics, right? Different
Hmm.
paths that you can go through. But also when you tell you if you're going to be compassionate or smart or you're going to be tough, there can't be an easy answer here. So we have the way that we work on that is every character on the crew that you're going to see has a personality of their own. And you will, by getting to know them, you'll know which of those three will work best for them in a given situation. If you have someone that is, Robert is, I don't know if I can curse here, but he's a bit of an asshole, and
Hmm.
everybody thinks he's an asshole. um, but the way to get to him and to get to know him might not be just to tough it out and just always speak tough to him because that's the way he speaks. You might need to, in a certain situation, be a smart person, right? And say, hey, this is not going to work for you. Uh,
Hmm.
but then Donnie is a brainy type of person, going through speaking to his strengths. He's quote unquote can be smarter than you in a sense, especially in the topics that he controls. So if you try to be smart with him on computer science and things like that he knows, he's going to run over you because you're going to just know everything that you know. But if he's someone that is looking for a family, like everybody in this game is looking for a extended family, one way or another. Let's say. Um, but if you're compassionate to him, then he might, under certain circumstances, appreciate that and say, you know what, this is a way that I can get to know this person better. Um, Now, I can't say these things because it's not so black and white that you have to just select this option for this option for this character, and it will be fine. So even though Robert is tough and you need to be smart, that's not always the case, right? You need to read his language, his dialogue, and to understand what's happening there. Sometimes you just have to tough it out. Sometimes you just have to let him win, and sometimes he just wins at the argument, and that's the way it is, right? Um, but we have three options every time you decide something in a dialogue, and those need to be heavy. Those need to be, well, maybe not heavy, but they need to be hold their own weight. That's what I mean. And even though those stories may converge at some point, if the Agatha that befriended Robert versus the Agatha that just tossed him to the side will be different Agathas, and their relationship with Robert will be different in those same scenarios.
With like writing a story around like having these different decisions. This is a question I always like to ask like adventure game developers, people who do like this kind of like visual novel form of storytelling. What is it like? I guess like think about your story like conceptually, in terms of okay, if the player chooses these specific choices, we're going to go down this path. They choose this, we're going down this path, and then like think about the story in like these like multiple ways like that.
There's something that I like. There's this other game called Mutazione. I don't know if you've played it. It's they call it as a soap opera type of game where forget the name of the main writer. I think her name was Hannah something or other. Great writer, but she said something that really spoke to us in a sense that it's a game of many middles. Right? The in that particular game, spoilers ahead. You are actually let's not spoil it. Let's do anyway. In that game, there is one story, but you get to meet a lot of people in the same way that we're meeting a lot of people. There's one story here. You're gonna in the demo, you're going to steal a ship. In our game, you're going to steal a ship, and there's no way for you to not steal a ship unless you don't play the game, right? But the way that you talk to to the characters, and that's where the differences come, because it's not about giving you, oh, you save the world by stealing the ship, or you destroy the world by stealing the ship, because the story is about, it's not about the world, it's about these five people that are on this ship. So the way that they react to you and the way that they end the story um, will be determined by the choices that you make while speaking to them, by helping them, by assisting in other people. There is a I'm sure you can spoilers for the demo. I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore, but you can kill switch can die in the demo, right? And that means that you're not going to see them anymore. And they've been with you. They're the very first person that you speak to uh, when the demo starts, and they can be the last person that you see when they leave, when your rocket launches to space. Right? There's no way for you not to steal that ship, but we're trying to make it so that this mission is so important that you decide to focus on it because it has value, and if you do focus on it, then alarms don't go off, right? And no one finds that you're there because, well, the mission was more important, and kill switch is lost to that. But if you've grown attached to kill switch and you decide to help them, then alarms will go off and everyone will be pissed at you because they almost got caught. And the way that people react to your decisions is what's going to make the different endings to this game, right? Um, if the views that people will have, the relationship that you help build, uh, the relationship that you build yourself with them will branch the narrative of this game. But the ship has its own path. Let's call it that, and you're in it. It's the same way in every game that you play. It's just because you have if you what's the game? I forgot the game. Stanley Parable.
Mhm.
You are in this game, and there are a ton of endings to it, but you cannot deviate from it, right? You can either play the game in a bunch of different ways and follow different doors and follow the yellow path, or you can just not play it. But there is no way for you to hide from the edges of this game. And in the sense, that's what the story is for every game and every movie that you've seen and every book that you've ever read, is you're in this because you want to experience it. Let's find the different ways that you go about it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Having the different choices kind of as we were saying, like it's not a case of you choose the good happy route, you choose the dark and
Yeah.
evil one. It's do you try and help this person? Do you put the mission above the other lives? And
Yeah.
one thing you were talking about earlier, I think is very interesting, is about kind of the consequence after those events or after those decisions. So that's another thing that it's a very interesting form or part of like writing these games. Like there are some titles where every decision is basically this cascading effect where you choose this and now the has to respond to that, and that can become like a nightmare to manage. Then we have some other games where kind of like some like the Walking Dead or Telltale style, where you have a lot of these little choices that maybe they'll influence things for like a minute or two after fact, and then we get back to the
Yeah.
main story. But then of course you have like the big kind of like uh kind of like a end note for the chapter, and that's the thing that will send the story either down like this path or this path.
Yeah.
And again, like keeping with our topic of being able to do a lot of limited resources, for kind of, I guess, like giving the player like the feeling that these choices matter. I guess what's been like both of your approaches again without causing both of you to go insane, coming up with 47 different endings like the Mass Effect challenge back in the
Uh,
day.
yeah. So we have at the very I think we have 6 endings so far. A couple of them are early. There may be decisions that you take that you make that will end your run early, right? I've run to call it something because it's not a roguelike of any kind. Um, but the way that we've been trying to narrow this scope, because that's something that I'm very I'm really for trying to narrow the scope as much as we can
Mm-hmm.
because words are cheap in a sense. If we had voice acting, for instance, we wouldn't be able to tell this story because, or we would need a ton of money to pay everyone to say all these words. But something that we have focused on is just because we can have decisions doesn't mean that we need to have them. So that's another way to say every time you speak to someone, the very first time you will have a dialogue choice there, right? The next time that you visit that node that we call a node, there might be nothing there for you, right? It'll expand on what you learned already, depending on what you chose before. But we're not going to have you because 3 different options every single time will crash your brain no matter what. So one of the things that we've done is we try to converge the options and keep the conversations as tight as we can. So if you're talking to there will come up a question that's currently on the demo that will change for the full game where Donnie asks or a blooper asks, "Do you trust me?" And right now you say kind of, but you can say no, and then he'll be mad at you. He'll be pissed because okay, whatever, man, do whatever you want to do. And the way that we try to do that is if he understands that you don't trust him, you can explain that to him, although that path you don't. Um, and we bring it back to a neutral state for that conversation. Now, we keep track of every time that you've made someone angry, that you've not chosen the right option for them, and that builds a profile of how these characters see you. And that's going to change the way that they react to you. If you've been a smartass, they might respond, "Oh, right, because the mission is the most important thing." But if you're being kind, they might see, "Oh yeah, we're a team," and that's the way that they react to you on the next time they speak to you. But we're always trying to make sure that the conversations are self-contained, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to filter to the huge amount of topics that we have to address every single time, but that they all hint at the next step. So it's we want to make sure that if you're getting to know this character, you can be an asshole, not getting, but you're going to learn something about them. You could learn more if you if you met their energy, I guess let's call it for something, right? If you chose the option that will be most accurate to them, more appealing to them. But you're always going to learn a bit, and that's going to tell you something. Um, and that'll help you to make decisions on that path because every character will have what we call a loyalty quest. They're not mandatory. You can just actually not do them, and you'll finish the game, and it'll be a story, of course, but it'll be richer if you dive into those stories, right? You can something that we're planning on is for you to help 2 people fall in love, right? And it's a bit cheesy and it's a bit annoying because well this is a point and click game where you get to know people and then you get them help them hook up. That's what's this, but it's one of those ways that you can keep conversations tight and to the point, but also see how the world changes around you because of the things that you've said, right? You don't have to, we don't have to create three Shakespeare plays every time that we talk to somebody because we wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, we've been doing this for 7 years now. We want to finish it hopefully next year and just see what everybody says about it, experience this story and see the different path that they get to know. Because the idea is for you to know these characters in different ways and who you like best, how do you think they are, and that's where the story is. Let's get this conversation to as tight as possible. Make sure that it hints to something else, but we're always moving the plot forward and their plot forward little by little. Um, there are a few steps where there's decisions you make that will block a path for the rest of the game. And those have been a bit tricky, but really interesting to find because we do want these steps to be meaningful. And if kill switch lived every single time, then there was no point to that choice, right? Because why am I deciding if I help her or if I don't uh, when they try to ask for when they're in trouble, right? But those type of situations puts us in a bit of a hard place to be in because we have to okay, so if this person is not here anymore, how does that impact the rest of the game, right? And that will mean that you can't visit those rooms, that you can't go to those places, that you can't do those things. And the hardest thing is for a player to understand that that is the choice they made and they're missing something because they did something, right? Not because we missed it, not because we forgot, not because, oh, that's okay. But you don't know what you don't know. And the first time that you play through it, through a game, you're not going to know what you missed. And making sure that you feel that pain is part of that, is how we fill that gap, right? Kill switch is not there anymore. And how can we make sure that you feel that like something happened there? Well, we have to give some weight to that and the other end, and you'll have a conversation that will, for a few, that will lean into that topic for a bit. But we can't hold hold the player hostage and follow this forever because we won't be able to finish anything really with the branching that gets generated from those decisions at the very start.
And telling the player that a something is like locked away or they're not able to access it, that's always like one of the more another very interesting challenge when it comes to game development. Because there are
Yeah,
people who despise that. They hate being told, nope, this is closed off, you can't go this way.
yeah,
And especially for a story based game, because there will be people like again, like with going back like a Telltale style or anything where a player can die, they'll try and save every single person. They don't want like any of those consequences to like affect things long term. But again,
yeah,
like part of what makes these choices so interesting and so challenging is that something has to go, and you have to be the one to
yeah,
decide that.
yeah. It's something that we're aiming for, and hopefully we'll get there. Is for people to ask, how can I save X?
Mm-hmm.
Did so and so help you, and how did that happen? If we can make it so that you know those gaps are there, um, this story will be for you because you will be someone that says, "Oh, I missed this, I missed this, I missed this." Or if you're a completionist and you want to make sure that everybody's with you, you will have to pay attention to their needs and to what their environment, yeah, let's call it environment, is saying about them, so you can actually be there for them. But something that we're planning on doing is we're going to give you a few options. Let's say a character will disappear from the game halfway through, right? We can't. I mean, we could, but we're not going to pin that down on one decision that you made, right? We're going to say, okay, so you messed it up here. We're going to give you one other chance and see if that. Now, is that chance easier? Are you going to just say, please, 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 I'm not going to help you? No, it's going to be even harder than the first one, but at least you're going to have another chance. Um, and they might help you afterwards, but it's something that we're building. And or if you get if you're nice to this person and they build a relationship with you, then they might be at this place instead of this other guy, and then when something happens at that location, they'll be the ones impacted by it instead of the other guy.
Mm.
Um, and that's the way that even though, let's say that there's going to be an explosion at that location, regardless of what you choose, the way that that person gets impacted by that choice will be felt by the crew, and we are avoiding anything that is let's showy in a way that because we will play games where they ask you who do you want to save, this person or this person, and then you save one and then the other one dies 2 minutes later, right? It's what you were hinting at with earlier today. And we want to make sure that if someone gets hurt, they got hurt, and then they can't help you do whatever you need to do next. So you're gonna need to find someone else to do it, and that's how we keep the story in its place while moving around the pieces that are within it, right? So because we are always balancing this big story, this huge scope, there's branches that will go endlessly to the infinite of the story if we don't catch them in time. So having focusing on how the relationships are built is how we manage that scope, trying to make sure, okay, so this is going to happen. What happens if they're not there to do it? Okay, well, then Agatha will have to do it, for instance. And we'll have a quest that will make sure that if you need to plant a seed and you were going to send Josh to do it, well, Josh is not there anymore because he got mad, then you're going to have to go find the seed yourself and plant it, right? Um, and if that is Josh's quest, that's your quest, because that's how I get to know you is by building this, by planting the seed and making this tree grow. Then if I don't do it, then we won't be friends, right? And the story will end, our story will end most likely there. And that means that the scope after that shrinks a little bit because Josh is not there anymore. Right? But that means for us that we have to, what we're building right now is the golden path, the path where all the decisions and all the characters are there, and then we start making the path where characters are starting to go away and see how that works.
Speaking about having like the golden path through, in terms of again like spoilers notwithstanding, in terms of like thinking about that from a design perspective, I guess like how are you coming up with I guess like what do we want the player to do? Like how obvious it is versus you know going back to like old school adventure games where you didn't pick up the towel from the bathroom in the first scene, therefore you lose at 5 hours
Yeah.
later.
So, oh man, yeah, that was brutal. Um, I don't miss those days. But something that we're focusing on is let's make sure first every puzzle needs to be grounded on reality somewhat, right? We're not gonna get you to find a monkey and wrench so you can have a monkey wrench and do something because that's although that was creative at the time, it was a lot of fun. It's not going to be consistent for us because the first thing that we have since we want to tell this story, this is a hopelessness story, the way that you find family in adversity if you actually decide to do so, because you could just end up alone, right? That's the whole point. um, if you don't befriend anybody, you don't help anybody, you don't care about anybody else, then you'll be alone at the end of the game. And that's the path you want to go, fine. But that that find that finding of the family is what gets you to that point. So that's how we decide. Okay, so that is the golden path. We want to make sure that the player wants to befriend these people, and that these people are there when he needs them or when she needs them. Um, and that's what we decide is it's golden for us. Let's experience this hopelessness in this situation. Let's build some hope through these interactions. But it is it is hard to do because when to narrow down because the story is so key for us that everything falls around it. That's one of the limitations, some of the constraints that we have, and one of the limitations that I like the most is when the story builds itself in a way that we have to. Okay, so we're not going to have a puzzle because we need a puzzle because the player hasn't done a puzzle yet. We have a puzzle because there is an obstacle that the player needs to overcome, right? Um, and that's the way that we're trying to build everything. So if you need to leave the ship and just go outside, why can't you do it at the moment, right? Oh, well, you can't do it because X. Well, how do we fix that? And that becomes the puzzle, right? and you're within this ship. So can you just call Doctor Who and just ask him to? No, you can't. Can't call nobody. You have to figure it out how to put a hole in this wall so you can go out. And what does that mean? If you put a hole in this wall, then that means that you can't access this room anymore because you're in a spaceship. You're not going to be able to just leave it there. It's not a window that you can get to open, right? And that's how the constraints for the story start to build shape from each other, because every decision that we make has an implication on the next and on the next and on the next. And it's something that we're looking forward to building once it's all complete, because that's we have once we have everything decided like we do now, we start to find this moments like, oh, this happens, but we had it happen. Let's say this huge hand from God came in and just grabbed you and then tossed you aside. Well, that can't happen anymore because we're in a spaceship. We're not in Greece anymore. So let's turn that into uh, an asteroid that came in, right, for whatever reason. So I'm here story building with you, so we can actually figure out how the story itself shapes what you can and cannot do. There are a few things that in preparation for this interview, I was thinking about what type of constraints have we seen? And there's the audience expectations, right? What do they expect from the genre that you're doing, from the game that you're doing? And those are expectations that you can't uh, do anything about it. They're just placed upon you, right? There is the expectations of the things that you decide to do. Which of those expectations do you want to grab onto? In our case, we have the sci-fi genre, which means future, which means space in many ways, which means grounded technology and things like that. So we've decided to grab the space portion of it and the grounded portion of it, and that's a constraint that we put on ourselves. Right? We said it's going to be grounded and it's going to be space themed, so we're going to have spaceship. But then once we have those decisions made, we now have the next type of constraint that the story plays upon us. Because the story thinks, okay, so wonderful, you chose a ship. Who's going to teach you things? Because there's only 5 people on this ship. And if you're all new to this ship, how do you learn those things that we need to tell the player? Right. And that's the story itself telling you, great. I love this ship, but if if we want to talk about Earth in one way or another, how do we place those items for the player to find, those nuggets for that will be optional in many ways. But those are the 3 tiers that I think could be part of everybody that is trying to build a story. What are people thinking? What do they want to hear? What do you choose from that? And what the choices that you made will take away from you. If and then you can actually just use what the story is telling you to deviate from the other two. Although they're kind of like a funnel in my mind. You first decide your genre, and then, well, maybe not first, but that's something that is very big, and your audience will tell you what they want. You then pick and choose whatever is important to you, and then when the story comes to be written, to be played, you can actually go without it and say, you know what, I can now create more people in this ship because that'd be weird. There's no way for anybody to teleport to this ship and teach me something new. But I can find an email from someone that they left on this computer, right? And if I need the player to know this thing for whatever reason, that's something that is available to us. So we break one of the previous constraints and say, well, it is futuristic, but we still have emails instead of having whatever else. We found a note, a paper note instead of an email because someone left it there. And we tried to something that Will hinted at a while ago that we were speaking is it is sci-fi, but the science fiction is the whole genre. But the fiction that you're telling now is what actually grounds and will tell you what you need to do with your story. Because it's if you are I don't know if you watched How I Met Your Mother, but something that happened in that final season was that the writers made a choice at the very first season of what the ending would look like, and nobody liked it when they got to because they got married to that decision instead of seeing what they have written over 9 seasons and just change it and adjust it to make it more fulfilling. Um, so that's something that we can fall for as writers, And as designers, it's like, well, I do want this game mechanic. I want this asset to be used. I want this story beat to be played, but not always. It's the kill your darlings experience, right? You have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that yes, it is great. Yes, it is beautiful. Yes, it is fantastic, but it doesn't work for this story. It doesn't work for this game. It doesn't work for
Mm-hmm.
this beat. Let's just park it and use it in a different game. And that's something that will get your constraints in order if you can see it. But it's not easy because you put so much effort into this. You built so much into each beat of mechanic and each beat of art and each beat of story that it's really eye-opening to say, sorry, buddy, you're not making it. I need to kick you out of this story.
Mm.
And we've had a fair bit of portions like that for Hope. And every time we kill one of our Larlings, the story gets better, to be honest. So and the character and the game gets leaner. One of the things that we had at the beginning was a tower defense game, and it was quite fun to play it. It was quite nice. But we had one of our play testers, a friend of Will's, say, "Listen, this is a great game, but I've been playing this for about 10 minutes and I haven't moved the story forward. Is this what you want me to be doing? Do you want me to be playing this tower defense game, or do you want me to just finish this portion, this mini game of sorts, so I can grab the next bit of lore, the next bit of info, the next bit of dialogue?" And that's something that really opened our eyes. And we said, well, yeah, no, we don't want you to play it. This is not a tower defense game. Although it was a tower defense mini game, we don't want you to be wasting your resources, your brain resources, losing the story because you're focused on how many bytes of data will go one way or another, right? And how to destroy the bad ones. Um, so that's something that Will had programmed and created assets for that mini game. And it was hard for us to say, yeah, Patricio is right. This is not the right call for this moment. And we what we thought for that was we might actually have in the long run an actual tower defense game that is just a tower defense game with bits of lore from this universe.
Mm.
Um, but we don't know that that's the case until you actually build it, and that's the paradox of development. You don't know what's going to work until it is complete in a way, and you can you can toss everything at it, and you do because you think it's going to be great. But when you see this stew of game mechanics, story beats, and art, there's there's too much. We have a saying back home. I don't know if it translates well to English, but it's too many cooks spoil
Mm-hmm.
the broth. I think that's what in English, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not the cooks that are the problem because there's only two of us. But if we toss all the ingredients in the pantry, it's not going to be a good stew. So we have to decide what to keep and what not.
And to your point about like working around making sure that everything is fitting within the game and being able to throw out things that don't work, again, that goes with, as we're talking about, having these limitations. In the perfect world, there's infinite time and infinite money to work on a game.
Yeah.
And, the release it when it's done kind of mantra
Yeah.
can work in all cases. But as you were saying at the beginning, like both of you are doing this as kind of like a side gig. Like you both have full time jobs, full
Yeah.
time lives. It's not exactly something that, again, it would be nice to say, let's just make a game that has 80 different endings and every choice is its own unique route, and we have mini games and the sub games for every single option. But one, it balloons obviously the development, and
Yeah.
two, it's hard to tell when it's on paper, does this make this game better? And
Yep.
I've seen this in a lot of like lesser puzzle games I've played where the focus is on quantity instead of quality. Here's 700 puzzles, and they're all maybe just slightly different variations of one another. And then you have something like a blueprint, or even going back to something like, what was it, Thomas Was Alone.
Witness. Oh,
Yeah,
Thomas was
and
alone.
yeah, and The
Yeah.
Witness, or the Stanley Parable as well. That you can do something really amazing that's more qualitative than quantitative. And this is something that for like longtime fans listening, that I think it's something that I've said a lot, especially in like the last like 6, 7 years, that we've seen this focus from any development to, instead of again trying to make the dream game or the ever game, that it really becomes more about focusing on, I want to make this specific game. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years, but it's not going to be like 6 to 8 years of active development. And
Yeah.
it's like definitely been, I think, one of the more interesting trends with a lot of the developers I've spoken to in like the last 3 years in particular, that so many developers who are getting into the space now are focusing on like 6 to 18 month dev cycles, and they're just thinking, at the end of this thing, it's going out. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to change my mind and say, let's add another 2 years of development. No, it's going out.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen too, and I think that has two components to it because we have the privilege of having full time jobs that can sustain
Mm-hmm.
this passion project of ours, this hobby of ours. But if we had to live out of the sales of this game,
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't do this.
Yeah.
We would have been starving ago. We wouldn't be able to finish anything. But it's something that it's when you commit to this understanding that, yes, this is part of my life that needs to be done. This is
Mm-hmm.
part of my spirit that needs to be out there, or whatever you need to do. The more you tweak it, the more you tinker with it, the more you change it, the farther away you get from the finished product. But when your whole meal, your dinner comes from this game, you can't stay here for I mean, unless you're the Hollow Knight devs, which once they've made Hollow Knight,
Mm-hmm.
they can stay out however long they need to make Soul Stone. Um, but on the other hand, most indie games are not Team Cherry, and we do need to focus on decide what the constraints are. Our constraint right now is the story itself, so we make sure that that is clean. But that's only because we have the privilege of full-time jobs that sustain our lives regardless. So it's the same triangle that you see around that it's either cheap, fast, or good. You only choose two of them, and we have chosen that it's going to be slow because we want it to be good. We want it to be cheap because we don't have all we have is our time. And although that's the cheapest way that we can do it, people might think that time is of the essence and time is the most important thing that you have. But this is something that we're passionate about, that we want to make sure that it gets done. And at the very start of this project, we didn't have a clear end to it. We had an end to the story, but we didn't understand how far that tweet that I saw once that said nobody told me that when I had to finish a game, I had to make the whole game, right? And, and it's true because you don't realize it until you actually have to do it. And to your point where you say, well, you can write all the mechanics, you can do create this game dev document to make sure that everything is there, and it's going to look great. But until you start building it, you're not going to know if it actually works or does anything. Um, and it's in the building that you actually grow as a designer. It's in the building that you grow as a developer. And you either focus on completing something, and Will is someone that has made quite a few games for mobile, not for Steam. And I've got much more less, far fewer experience, or far less experience than he does. Um, and I think that's why I focus so much in scope, because I want this to be finished, I want this to be experienced by other people. Um, but it's the perfect is the enemy of good, as they say, right? And all those cliches are there because that's just the reality of many projects of creativity and creative uh, work. When you try to do something, you try to make it perfect, it's not going to be done. And when this year we saw the end of the line, we're really excited about that. Oh, you know what? We're working on episode 2 out of 3. We just have the third one mapped out already. This is exciting. This is really cool. And building Will is out actually just sent me that he finished this one particular quest that we've been working on, and I'm here thinking, oh, that's brilliant. I just can't wait to see it because we want to make sure that we not only play test it, but when we talk about it, when we discuss it, and then he gets to code it and art it, an art it and create assets for it, it's mind blowing because then it comes to me to say, well, what are we trying to talk about during this thing? And we decide all those things, all those speed ahead of time. And while he's doing the art, I'm making those dialogues and making those choices, and then he goes in and reads them and tells me, hey, this is missing the mark. I'm like, well, thank you. Let's bring it back again. And that's something that is actually that's one of those things that you don't think about when you're starting to make something with someone else. That your best can be better if someone else looks at it, and it's something that we started referring to everything that we do as a first draft. Because when I write this conversation, we're having a conversation, this person and this person have something to say, these are the decisions that I think should be there. And then you, Josh, come in and you read and you can tell me, you know what, this is not it. And I can always ask, well, okay, I get it's not it. What is missing for you? Right. And you're going to tell me, well, it's too cheesy. This person doesn't think like this. And that's something that we always use to say, uh, well, let's get to the next step. Does it meet what we want to say? We've decided that in this conversation, Josh is going to share that he likes apples. Now, is that there? Because if it's not there, then the conversation needs to be scrapped completely. If it is there, then we have to get to the point of Josh's character and why apples are matter to him. And doing that is what I enjoy so much because getting to the mind of those characters and making sure that they're the ones speaking is something that is really fun for me. It's hard as heck. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
tell you how many times I've been looking at this page and just say, okay, I finished the 10th line of dialogue, and it's been 2 hours since I started. Um, but once once he sees it and he points me to the right direction, then we go through it, and then he shows me his art, and I say, well, you know what, this could be. This is confusing to me because I don't see how this is a door, for instance. That hasn't happened, but whatever. Um, and then he can go back and say, oh, you know what, you're right, and that rapport is what builds not only our friendship because we were friends before, but now he's pretty much my best friend. That allows us to talk about pretty much anything that we need to talk, and we will never say something that hurts the other person because that is not what we're here to do. And working with someone that understands where you're at and what you want to achieve it's priceless, to be honest. When you have a disagreement, you can always say, "This is why I don't see it the way that you do," and they're always expecting to say, "You know what? I understand. Let me rephrase, let me reframe, or maybe you're right," because there's a lot of things in between. But a good team works great, and it's something that I heard on a podcast by Biscotch Shenanigans. They're making a game called How Many Dudes at the Moment, but they made Crashlands 2 recently. I mean, they're three brothers, and they say that their business is not making games. Their business is to build a team that can make games, and it's a fine distinction because although they're a successful indie developer, their focus is on having a great team that can put together the experiences that they're looking for, right? And that's what we aim, Will and I are aiming to do, build each other up so we can actually make the experiences that we want to make. Now, is it always easy? No, but speaking to people is hardly ever easy, and especially when something that matters to you so strongly. But it's something that not everybody has, and this is a creative field where you want the people not to be the obstacle, but to be the trampoline that you use. Right? We all have had works and jobs where the team is an obstacle when you're trying to do something. Right? When you have this person that thinks they're the best, and whatever you tell them won't work. And even though you might be right, but that doesn't work, it's something that it it makes you not want to give your all to this project. But when you build a team that has your well-being and understands what you want to do in mind, is something that will make your experience in that whatever work it is. If you are in nursing, which is a very hard field because you have patients that will hate your guts because you're trying to do something nice for them that they need to do, and they'll how do you say this? They'll blame you for things that have just because they're upset because their leg is broken and they think you are an asshole because of it. And you have to deal with that experience. If the rest of your team isn't nice or isn't good to you, that experience will take you out of the job at some point. Um, but I think I've rambled a lot about teams. Good
Mhm.
teams, if you can choose money over team, choose team every time. Now, not everybody has that privilege, but fortunately for us, we've been friends for over 15 years now, and yeah,
Being able to have like small teams or having everyone be on a good rapport with each other is just essential when it comes to any development. You don't want to
yeah,
be trying to build a game where everyone hates each other.
yeah, right. Yeah. That's something that Jason Schreier heard from Team Cherry. They said, "What?" He asked them, "Why did you take this long?" And they're like, "Well, we didn't want to change anything. We were having a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
the game Spokesman was ready when it was ready, and it took as long as we needed." And that's the type of environment that you want to have. You're having fun doing the thing that you love, and ideally, you'll have the resources for it, so you don't have to worry about it. Um, but that's the type of team that everybody's aiming for.
Mhm. So, one other question I want to ask you regarding the development of Hope is the puzzles. We talked about this a few minutes ago, and going back to what you were saying earlier on want to make sure everything is kind of flowing with the story.
Yeah.
And puzzle design in adventure games, again, we've seen so many twists and turns in terms of how things have evolved. There are some games, again, focus more on story, very light puzzle. There's, again, heavy puzzles, light story, and everywhere in between. So, with Hope, I guess, what has been both of your approaches to kind of like puzzle design or puzzle philosophy in that respect?
So some like I mentioned before, so the main thing is not to have a puzzle because we want a puzzle. Now, once we every good story, and we hope our story is good, we think it is, but you'll be the judge when it's out, so you'll tell us. Um, every good story has obstacles that the protagonists and the characters need to overcome, right? Those obstacles sometimes are someone standing in front of a door and they're hungry, and you get them a sandwich and they leave for lunch break, and then you can go through that door, right? That's something that can happen. Um, but if that would be a puzzle, then finding that sandwich or making that sandwich will be the experience that we would try to make fun for you, right? Um, and when we find those obstacle points when we're building this story, we realize that there's a point where the med bay is broken. So you how do you fix it? That's a puzzle for us, right? We want it to be grounded. We don't want it to be, although there is this one puzzle in Full Throttle that I love. That is, you're trying to get there is this huge gate that is closed, and when you pull a chain, it opens. But when you let it go to try to go through that gate, then it closes because you're not fast enough to get to the door. And spoilers for Full Throttle, a 20-year-old game, I think, or something like that. For that particular puzzle, what you need is a lock, one of those locker locks, right? And this was so grounded and so good that when I saw it, it made me happy. So what you're supposed to do is use the lock on the gate, because once every time you pull the chain, the gate goes up, and then when you release the chain, the gates goes down and the chain goes up again, right? So what you do is you put the lock on the gate, framing it, fixing it to the floor. So when you pull the chain, it can't go up anymore. But that means the chain doesn't go down. And you can now climb the chain to go over the wall, right? So it's something that really blew my mind when I actually saw it. I said, no, that is a brilliant puzzle. It's something that is grounded, that is logical, that you can see happening when you solve it. You feel great. Now, are we Double Fine talent? I would love to say yes, but we're not. But that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for things that are simple and that don't, in this scenario, that don't get away from the story. So you can the in when you get trapped in the demo, there's a way for you to the way that you get out is by breaking stuff around. So you find a rock somewhere, you use it on something else, you break something else, you can use that something as a screwdriver to open a vent and just go outside. So that's the type of things that we're trying to ease the player into. Whenever you have to do one thing, when you have to go through a door, there are two obstacles at the same time. There's a camera that is seeing you, and it would alert everybody if you go through that door. But there's also a pass card that you need to find in order to open that door. So once you find the pass card, Agatha will tell you, well, I can't go through because I'm not authorized, and the camera will see me. So you have to find a way to get the camera off your back, right? Or turn it off or do whatever. And those obstacles will build the mini games and where you look to find these places. And in this particular scenario, what you need to do is you go to the maintenance closets or the janitorial locker room, and then you will find a password that somebody has left, and you find the tools that you need to hack a different place and find something for Killswitch to do for you. Now that does have an implication since kill switch, which is a character that is not with you but is connected to you through the neural link. That's one of those tech things that we have um, in the game. It's that means that you open them up for danger because you've connected them to the network that you are in, which is not a safe network. So from that point of view, you have she will help you out. Kelsey will make sure that that camera doesn't bug you anymore. But now that will be reflected on the choice that we have later about they will tell you, I think I've been compromised. I think they're coming after me, and I don't know how to get out, right? So that's how we try to build our puzzles. There there's something that you're trying to put together because Agatha needs to put it needs it to continue. And if we can make that decision hinder something else, we will happy make that happen because it's a way for not only for the player to feel the weight of their choices, but also to move the story forward. It makes it the more obstacles you put in your way, the richer it becomes, and in one way or another, it becomes better for us because then we have another obstacle that we can turn into a puzzle if we need to, right? So we let the story feed us where the puzzles need to go, and in order to make the puzzles, we make sure that they're grounded within the fiction that we've created. We're not going to make you, pray to a god that it doesn't exist, so you can actually, so they can, the light goes off or whatever it is that someone else might do, and it makes it harder to build enjoyable puzzles in one way because you don't want everything to be, oh, a screwdriver will fix it, right? But on the other hand, it also makes it easier because you have everything that you can have is something that you in the world have experience with in one way or another. So if you need a screwdriver, well, I don't have one. What can I turn into a screwdriver? Oh, this piece of metal. Once I break it, it's going to look like a screwdriver, so it's going to work out. Um, and that's how we try to make it work. Now that does that really answer the question? I don't know. Our philosophy is to make it as grounded as we can, and as logical for the story as we can, and to have the biggest impact for future scenes. There will come a point where you may need to see if the ship. How can I explain this? Um, Weigh the pros and cons when a part of your ship is under emergency. So you'll need to figure out what to do in that scenario, and that is more of a mind puzzle, a decision than go get this and turn off a fire for whatever reason. Um, because those type of puzzles can be fun if they're quick. Because you also want not every puzzle needs to be this huge undertaking with this different branches that you have to narrow into these five MacGuffins that you need to bring onto the same place. No, some puzzles are just go get the thing and bring it over here because we want the story to be the important beat at that point. If you're supposed to do this quickly because Agatha is smart and then she can just do it, oh yeah, Agatha can just do that. And we need to convey that expertise to you through the puzzle difficulty. But on the other hand, when she doesn't know how to do something, that's going to be a more difficult thing to do for her.
All right. As a quick time check, we're just over like an hour and 10 in. I think if it's good for you, we can probably wrap things up in the next few minutes.
Sure. Oh,
All right.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's whatever you need, it's good. It's been fantastic talking to you, Josh. Um, I I wasn't expecting this to be so big into hope and how we do things, which has made me think about our decisions quite a bit. I'm really happy to show this to Will and say, did I mess this up? Because did I say too much? But he's gonna be gracious enough to understand and to see the questions that you've brought in and see how he can answer them too. Um, but it's actually been quite interesting for me to hear you dig into how we do things, right? I mean, it is game wisdom after all, so you're trying to get the way that we do things. So if anybody else needs them, they can actually do them too. And if any of you watching this want to reach out and tell and ask questions about how we do things or tell us how we can do things better, Azrael CCS at pretty much every social media platform that you'll find us. And yeah, just reach out. It'll be great. We'll
All
have
right.
fun.
So I guess here's like my final question for you, and then we'll wrap things up. On the subject of working around limitations when it comes to game dev, one of the biggest ones that I think has been a stump for many developers, of course, the art. Coming up with an art style and making sure that it fits the game and that something that can be done in a feasible time is one of the hardest things. It's like on the very nature like we're at right now, people discussing more about using a Gen AI in games. When I look
Yeah,
at a lot of store pages, almost 9 times out of 10, if there's Gen AI used in that game, it's going to be for something that is art related, portrait
yeah,
art, character art, that respective aspect. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of coming up with the art and the art style for Hope, how has that been in terms of like working as a two-person team?
that's been that is a question for you know what. Will is the artist on our team. He doesn't consider himself an artist, which is interesting because he's grown so much. Because he's mainly a programmer. He's taken on the art portion, and although he'll be able to answer the nitty gritty of the process and what he goes through, what I've seen from him. Now we've done every week we meet twice a week, and we most of the times are office hours, which will we just see each other work what we're doing, so I can vouch and see. Well, I can see him making his own art. But something that I've really enjoyed seeing him is him change the way that the game first looked to the game that it looks now. He's grown so much into finding his own way of making this color palette. And one of the things that we've done is we've hired people to give us a concept on different scenes that we want to see, and I mean, Fiverr has been a tool for that, which is a can have a big cost, but we don't have that budget, so we use smaller creators to to do that. And that was a while ago, right? And when that was the Fiverr person. We then came in contact with two other artists that we have asked and pay them for their time because we although we're a small team, when we don't have a budget, to be honest. We come from our own pockets, everything goes out. We want to make sure that our artists and the people that help us, if we can, and if they have a cost, we cover it as best as we can, right? So
Mm-hmm.
having other people that know what they're doing inform how to build these assets has been a boon and has been fantastic for us. Will has taken the the art that they have done and turned it into his own thing, which is what you see now. There's still another art pass that he wants to make through the demo, and he's working on quite a few scenes at the moment that are just completely different from anything on the ship. Spoilers there, maybe. But it's uh, it's really interesting to see him look at what somebody else made and turn it into something that we can use. Because it doesn't matter how big of an expert you are in your art, if you are not part of the team, you won't understand everything that has to be in it, right? You don't understand necessarily how the look and feel is for us, what we're aiming for. But you can teach us, and mostly will, how to handle contrast and how to handle different levels of light to make something look deeper than it actually is in its 2D space. And we don't we try to make to put the effort where it most be helpful, right? It's he Will really does speaks about the 80-20 rule. It's where the 20% of your effort will bring 80% of the experience in one way or another. So making simple assets, and you can see Hope has a very simple style. It's vector art with minimal differences in different shades, but there's still something that you can see. We don't even have faces. Part of the we don't have faces is because it's hard to put faces into a place and people think that there's actually someone there. Um, and that's where the dialogue comes in, so we can actually make the people feel real to what they say. But we've chosen this art as simple as it is because it's what Will has learned to do. He came into his own during this project, and I'm consistently telling him, dude, this is amazing. You've grown so much, and when you get to see this, Will, you've done fantastic. Listen, I've got nothing but great things to say about you. Um, and I find his art, the art for Hope, gorgeous. I love it. And there's been a couple times where I've said something like, I don't understand what this means, and this could be a different color because this person likes this color or something like that, right? But the way that he takes the expertise of other people and incorporates it has been eye-opening for me, and it's made me want to see what other games do. It's something that I do naturally because I like games that are story driven. So I'm always playing games. Well, not so much lately because of my newborn, but uh, I I thrive in stories. I like stories, and when I see a show, I try to see why they're saying the things that they're saying, and I find it interesting. Well, I think this is a tangent, huge tangent. I'm sorry, Josh, I have to tell this. The Witcher show, I think it's the second season. There is the Geralt and Jennifer have been apart for a bit, and Siri and Yaski have been traveling with Geralt for a bit, but then Jennifer comes into the picture again. And the writers of that show could have made that scene what Geralt tells to Jennifer and how they fight with each other and how they end up being friends again at that point after they've been far apart for so long because of whatever happened during that season. But what they chose to do instead was brilliant, and I loved it. And is you can see the girls and Jennifer on the far away, running towards each other and trying to start making this gesture that are fighting with each other. But what you hear is Siri and Jaskia pretending to be them as they watch them from afar and trying to say what they're saying. And it's brilliant because you don't only get to know what happened in that scene with Carol and Jennifer, but we also get this insight into Siri and Jaskier's personalities, how they mock their friends, how they tease them, and how they see their friends through this conversation. So that's something that you get to learn when, I mean, not know how to do it because they're those writers were brilliant, but that you see ways of doing presenting different types of art, either be written dialogue or different when you see what an expert can do, and you're not there yet, but you can turn your polygons and your vectors into something that will use those contrast rules, those lighting rules, and those darker images and those shapes that they made into this concept art that they made for the Mandate, for instance. and you can use it on your own and say, you know what, this is what works, and this works for this project.
Mm.
So he's done great. I'm sorry. That was a huge tangent, but I love that scene. And Will has done something like that. He's seen an expert at work or a few, and then incorporated what he's able to when he does his art. Yeah.
All right. So I think with that we can wrap things up for tonight. But to end on, I just have a few just general questions for you. So the first one is one I always like to ask. Again, the demo for Hope, is that still available on the store page? Yeah.
Yes. So the demo is still live now. We are working on a new UI overhaul. We've been using where the reticle comes to an item and then you have to click up at the
Mm.
circle to activate it and things like that. We're going away from that. We hope to have it soonish next week, maybe probably by the 11th or so, because we have a festival, Storytellers Festival that is happening that week. We want to have it ready by then, where you would just click on the thing, because that makes sense. It's just click on the thing and it'll do what it needs to do and it'll be fine. So that's what to expect on the demo at the moment. We don't plan on bringing it down at any point soon. We are working on the next phases, the next chapters of the game we follow from the demo. So any improvement that we do to those games, to those chapters in gameplay or whatever, something like the new UI, will be ported to the demo eventually, because once we do it once, it just gets applied to the whole game, right?
Mm. And do you have an estimated idea for when you're hoping to finish it up?
We're hoping to finish it in 2027 by Q4, hopefully before the holiday season of next year.
Hey.
Please, please, please. May the gods, the fallen gods, help us make that happen. Yeah.
All right. So, do you have any final thoughts or anything you would like to say to any fans watching to take us out for tonight?
Um, Fans. I don't know if we have any of those, but I think what you need to do is start as small as you can. And this is something that Rami Ismail
Mm.
told me. Focus on one thing that you want to do, one thing that you want to achieve, and make that thing happen. Twine is great for this if you're a writer. Small jams are fantastic if you're a programmer and artist. Find someone that will help you if you need help. But start as small as you can. Once you complete something, you'll have seen it through all the way through, and then you can start over with a different project. But if you can, um, you have a great idea right now, and I know it's fantastic, but grab one bit of it, turn it into a game, turn it into a book, turn it into a painting or whatever it is that you need to do. And once you have it, you'll know how to do that portion, and then you can take that big idea, that fantastic idea, take another bit of it, and then you'll end up with the whole game, the whole project at the end. It's gonna take a bit longer, but you're gonna well, no, it's not gonna take longer because you're never gonna finish it if you don't know these smaller steps. But take one bit, finish it, and then take another, finish it, and that's how you will build whatever it is that you want to build. And yeah, find people like Josh and share his wisdom, because it's yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely a good point to end on for this conversation. So, Azrael, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck with crossing the finish line for Hope.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, and thanks everybody for watching. Wishlist the game.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.
Oh, and for people listening, any other social media you want to promote? You mentioned your name, Azrael CCS. Anything else you want to bring up?
From hellstudio.com on Blue Sky is our studio's Blue Sky, but you'll find me and Azrael CCS anywhere and everywhere. And from there, you'll see that I'm linking to our studio and I'm linking to Hope, because that's pretty much all I'm not a social media person anymore, but I do keep my Hope news on the feed every time. You'll find us there.
All right. So, with that, we are going to say goodnight for this chat. So, for everyone watching, thank you for tuning in. Do the YouTubing stuff, check out the Discord, Patreon, buy all the many copies of my books, as I'm Recording this right now, I'm going to be starting to work on my next book on adventure games. So that's going to be a very exciting time for 2026. As I said at the start, if you are a developer working on a game or just want to chat about game dev and all its many aspects, be sure to reach out. And, of course, be sure to check out Hope on Steam. You'll find a link to that on the store page down below. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, racing the art and science of games. Until our next chat, have a great night.